Strongholds.
Teams fight for control of 3 zones. 2 zones must be controlled to score. The first team 250 wins. When contesting a zone, it technically becomes neutral and stops the enemy from scoring if they only have 2 zones. Controlling 3 zones builds points faster, but maintaining control is harder. The team who is better at working together and maintaining map control usually wins in Strongholds. The 3 main things you need to think about are map control, helping your team, and staying alive. Control 2 zones and set up to control 2. However, in Solitude, the optimal setup is to spawn them blue or tram while holding a triple cap. You can put the enemy team in a blender with a triple cap on Solitude. However, your team must be very coordinated, so I'm going to talk about holding 2 zones. Controlling spawns. Controlling C is the goal here. Even if you aren't dealing damage, controlling C will spawn the enemy in unfavorable areas. Set up so you can hold crosses to your team and make it hard for the enemy to maintain map control. When going for a point, sometimes the longest route to the point is the best. FYI, stay out of tramp. It's an 8-hole. If you are anchoring C, it's okay not to be in every fight. Your goal is to anchor and stay alive on C and get info for your team and control and influence spawns. In Solitude, high ground is key. Dropping down to cap B is not a great plan unless you control top mid and have a numbers advantage. If you find yourself below, start climbing. If the enemy is dead, they can't cap a zone. On top of that, don't go for B unless your team has an advantage in numbers or camo. If you have numbers advantage, capping B is way easier. In general, stay on the high ground unless most of the enemy is dead anyway. It's better to let the enemy have a few points than it is to jump down to B and get killed immediately and lose map control. Play for power items and weapons. Shock and camo are an amazing combo that should bring fear. If you don't play for camo, you're basically throwing the win away. Helping your team. Pushing with your team to cap hill is important, as the other team is probably set up watching different angles to the hill. When a teammate is capturing a zone, protect them. Make it hard for the enemy to shoot them, let alone get to them. Crosses are insanely huge in Strongholds. It helps protect your team and makes the enemy have a hard time moving around the map. Look at your teammates when you get a chance and ask yourself, what does your team need? Start filling those gaps that your team needs, whether it be anchoring or rotating with them. Let your team do their 25%. It takes 18 seconds after dying to get back into position to help your team, versus 4 seconds to get your shields back. Learning to rat or sneak around and not fire your weapon is a good way to anchor for your team and wait for a push or influence spawns without the enemy realizing. Don't chase kills. Even if you know you could finish that guy, it's better to maintain the setup you have, especially if you are an anchor. On that note, don't ego challenge. Call them out and trust your team. Control spawns and make it hard for the enemy by getting into positions and utilizing crosses. Play for shock and camo, help your team by protecting them and pushing with them, and filling the gaps of the setup. Play your life so you don't lose map control and trust your team to do their 25%.